We are on Daf Nun base, Amid base, right at the bottom. We're going to do Daf Nun Gimel. We're going to start with the Mishnah. The Mishnah is going to talk about various things that are typically on an animal and are there for the comfort of the animal. So chamor yotze b'mardas. A donkey can go out with a mardas, which is the blanket, the saddle cloth that goes beneath the saddle. As long as it is bound, it is tied to the donkey. So then the donkey can wear this on Shabbos, and it's considered a garment because it keeps it warm and it keeps it cool. It keeps it cool in the summer and it keeps it warm in winter, so it can be on it. Zacharim yetzim levuvim. The Gemara is going to explain what levuvim are, but basically they would sometimes tie the males together in order to keep them together. Rechelos yetzish shechuzos. Ewes, female sheep can go out when they are shechuzos with their tails tied up. Kavulos, they are bound, and the Gemara is going to go through each one of these cases. And kavunos, ha'izim yotzim tsaruros, goats can go out tsaruros, and this is female goats that have their udders covered, either to dry them out or that they should not lose their milk. Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yossi says that all of these may be worn besides for the ewes, the female sheep who are kavunas, as we'll see in the Gemara what those mean. Rabbi Yehuda says, indeed, those female goats are allowed to go out with their udders covered only if it's in order to dry them out, but not in order to collect the milk. So the Gemara is going to go through some of those, and we'll start with the merdas, which is the saddle cloth. So Amar Shmuel says, "V'husha kashura erev Shabbos." This that it says that the donkey can wear its saddle cloth in a public domain on Shabbos. That's only if it was bound to the animal before Shabbos. Amar Nachman Asitan Amideke, and our Mishnah seems to indicate that too. The Tani ein achamor yotze b'merdas b'zman she'eina kashura, because it says that the donkey cannot walk out with the saddle cloth if it's not tied to it. Hechidami, what's the case? If it's not bound at all, for sure not. Shita, Dilma Nafulav, Asilasiyo, as we'll see, this entire conversation says that anything that is likely to fall off and require fixing or require picking it up and putting it back on is prohibited on Shabbos in a public domain, because once it comes off, you may actually walk 4 amos in order to put it back on. So that's going to be prohibited. So obviously, if the donkey's saddle cloth is on and not tied on, it's going to be prohibited. So therefore, when it says Ella in our Mishnah, when it says that it has to be tied on, or in the Brisa it says that it can't go without it tied on, Elav she'eina kshura me'erev Shabbos. What it means is that you're not allowed to use it if it's not bound up before Shabbos. It has to be before Shabbos, tied to the donkey. Mechlal, the Reisha shekshura me'erev Shabbos. Shemaminas in our Mishnah in our Mishnah, the one that we just read, when it says that it's tied to him, it must be that it's tied before Shabbos already. Tani Namahachi, indeed we have a brisa like this. Chamor yetze b'merdas b'zman shekshura me'erev Shabbos. The brisa clearly states that this has to be bound to him, to the donkey before Shabbos. However, the saddle itself, even though that it does warm the animal may not be worn even by a donkey in the public domain, even if it is on from before Shabbos. However, no, he says that if it's on the saddle is on the donkey from before Shabbos, then it may be worn. It may be worn, and he can go out in public domain with it. However, but the saddle would have a front and back strap to make sure that it doesn't slide forward and backward on the back of the donkey. So that back strap, which goes under its tail to keep it from sliding forward, and the strap in the front that would keep it from sliding backwards, those are called the masrichin as the front strap, and the yifshala ritzua tachazanova is the back strap. Both of those may not be put on. Yeah. However, Rabbi Gamliel does say that as long as it's on before Shabbos, he's allowed to wear it. Are you allowed to throw the blanket on the animal on Shabbos? This is not about a question about leaving into public domain. That we already said. In order to go into the public domain, it has to be that the saddle mat is on prior to Shabbos and tied on prior to Shabbos. This is just a general thing. Can you put it on the animal on Shabbos or not? Or does it have to have been on beforehand? Amar lei mutter. So he says the strap is called a girth. Is that the back strap or the front strap?
Both.
They're both called a girth?
Yep.
I thought the front strap was the martingale.
Nope. That's part of a halter.
All right. You guys can find it out later on, which strap is called what. All right. So he says, are you allowed to put this the saddle mat on the donkey on Shabbos? He says mutter. He says permissible. Well, what's the distinction between that and the saddle? And in questioning this, Rav Asi Bar Nosson assumed that putting the saddle on is prohibited, and he assumed that the B'chia Barabashi would agree to that, and therefore he asked him, if you can't put on the saddle, you shouldn't be allowed to put the saddle cloth on either. Ishtik, and Rav Asi Bar Nosson didn't respond. To which Rav B'chia assumed the reason he didn't respond was because he disagrees and says that even the saddle is allowed to be put on. Asa, he challenged him. He asked him a question from this brisa. If Shabbos comes in and the donkey still has his saddle on, so you're not allowed to take it off. Rather, what you need to do is you need to walk the donkey back and forth in the courtyard, and the saddle will fall off on its own. So you're walking back and forth until the saddle falls off. Now, if you're not allowed to pick it up and take it off of the donkey, and that's uncomfortable to the donkey, to put it on the donkey, for sure you're not allowed to. Amar le Rabbi Zera Shavke. Rabbi Zera said to Rav Asi Bar Nosson, leave him. He follows the opinion of his Rebbe. He follows the opinion of Rav, who the Amar of Chiya Barashi Amar Rav Turlin Traskel Behema B'Shabbos, that you're even allowed to hang a basket, which is a food basket around the neck of the animal, that basically its snout will be right in it and eat, which is just for its comfort. in order that it not need to graze. You sort of picked it up and put the hay in a basket for it and hung the basket around its neck in order for it to have an easier time eating. So you see, if Rav says that you can hang a traskel, which is just for the comfort of the animal, for sure, for sure you're allowed to throw a blanket over it, which is actually even more, let's say, necessary for the animal because it has no other way to warm itself, and it's going to be it's going to be cold. So if you can give it the pleasure of not needing to graze and put a basket on it, for sure you can put the blanket on. There it's just for pleasure. It's permissible. Here where it's actually discomfort, for sure it's permissible. Shmuel, however, Shmuel says it depends. Mardas mutter, he does agree that the saddle cloth, throwing it on the donkey, is going to be permissible because it keeps it warm. Traskel aser. However, he disagrees putting that the basket, the food basket around the neck is going to be permissible. He says that's aser because that it's not really necessary. He told Shmuel the halacha that Rav had said, that you can even put the traskel, you can even put this basket, food basket in front of the donkey. Yeah, if Abba said this, Abba Rashi says is my friend, my master. Abba is a father. If my friend said this, he doesn't know anything about Shabbos. So he strongly disagreed. He said, no, that can't be. Kisalik Rabbi Zera, when Rabbi Zera went from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, as we saw earlier, that Rabbi Zera wanted to go to Eretz Yisrael, and when he went to the academies, Ashkechel Rabbi Binyamin Bar Yefes, he came to Eretz Yisrael, and there he found a teacher by the name of Rabbi Binyamin Bar Yefes, the Yosef Kamal Mishmaita Le Mishmei de Rabbi Yochanan. He said the same halacha in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. So Rabbi Yochanan was the head of the academy in Eretz Yisrael. Rav and Shmuel were the heads of the academy in Bavel. And when Rabbi Zera, their student, went to Eretz Yisrael, he found that in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, the same halacha was being said. That you could put a saddle cloth on a donkey on Shabbos. Amalei Yasher. So he said, wonderful. That's thank you. That's correct. And the king said the same thing in Bavel. And the king, and who is the king? Aryech Manu Shmuel. Aryech is Shmuel. So you see that Shmuel said the same thing, that you can put the saddle cloth on the donkey. Well, that part Rav also said. Rav just said that not only the saddle cloth, but you can even hang a food basket for the animal. He also heard that he concluded from that, or he deduced from that he concluded only a saddle cloth, but not the basket. And on that he said, indeed, correct, thank you for saying that, and that is the way Shmuel had said it. Because Rav had said that you can also put the food there. And Shmuel is the one who said, no, you can't put the food, you can only put the saddle cloth on, because that's to eliminate discomfort as opposed to add some comfort, add some pleasure. The Kula Alma Miyas, but now the Gemara concludes. Everybody, however, agrees. Rabbi Yochanan and Eretz Yisrael, Rav and Shmuel, both in Bavel, agree you can put the saddle cloth on the animal. Mardas muter, well, then back to the question that that Rav Asa ben Hassan asked, well, what is the distinction? Why is it that a saddle cloth can be put on and the saddle itself cannot? The reason why you can't even take off the saddle, for sure you can't put it on, but you can't even take it off, even though it's the comfort of the animal. You just make it walk back and forth. That's because it's possible. If you walk it back and forth, it'll fall off. So do that rather than pick it up.
Why aren't they mentioning the fact? I mean, a saddle is something. I mean, an uchaf is something that you ride on. I mean, everywhere. And uchaf is something. It's a saddle. It's, you ride on it. You can't ride an animal on Shabbos. So why wouldn't uchaf be? I mean, absolutely 100% muksa, right? Lechatchila.
No, that's what we said earlier. That it even though that its purpose is for riding, it does afford more warmth to the animal on a cold night.
Well,
so you have the saddle cloth that's going to give it warmth, and that's why he said before that there was a machlokes of whether you can put on the ukaf or not. And Rabbi Shimon Gamliel said that even the ukaf, if it's tied on, you can go out with, because it also provides some warmth. And if it was tied on before Shabbos, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says you can wear it. To that, the Gemara says you for sure can't put the ukaf on, as you said. That you can't put it on, but we can't even take it off. The way to take it off is to walk the donkey back and forth until it falls off. He says, so how could it be that that I can't take it off? I need to walk the animal back and forth for it to fall off, yet I can put the saddle cloth on directly. And to that, the Gemara says the reason is because it's possible for it to fall off. So they do it in a better way, in a way that you're not actually handling the muksa. But the saddle cloth, which is there for the benefit of the animal to keep it comfortable and to keep it warm, or keep its body cool, if that's going to help in the summer, so do that, throw it on. Rav Papa says it depends whether it's to heat it or to keep it cool. The reason why you want to throw the saddle cloth on is to warm it up. It doesn't have the ability to warm itself in a cold night, and therefore it needs the saddle cloth. However, if it's hot and you want to take the saddle off in order to allow it to cool, that's not as necessary. And the reason is because a donkey has the ability to cool itself even on a hot day, even if it has a saddle on, and so it's not as necessary for its comfort. As the Gemara explains, in order to warm it, you need to throw on the saddle cloth, because otherwise it's going to be very uncomfortable, because it doesn't have the ability to warm itself on a cold night. However, the donkey, and the reason why you want to take the saddle off is to help it cool. That's not such a big deal for a donkey. And this is what people say. A donkey, even on in midsummer, kufas tamas, even in the midsummer, it has the ability to cool itself. It's cold. It's not going to overheat in the summer's day, and therefore there's no need to take off the saddle. But to put a blanket on, that's necessary because it doesn't have the ability to warm itself. Mesa, we ask a question. Leyetze hasus bezarim shual v'le bezaharis shebeinena. The horse should not go out with a fox's fox tail, and not with a red string around its on its forehead. These are things that are adornments of a horse, and that's not necessary. It's not a garment, so I can't walk out with that. And someone, a zav, who has the tumah coming out, and he needs to check himself to know whether or not he has another excretion of ziva. So in order to do that, he has a cup over his male organ in order to see whether he's leaking another ziva. So he can't walk out in a public domain with that, because these are not garments. And also a goat, a doe cannot walk out with a cup over its udder, which would collect its milk that's dripping. V'lei para bechasam shebapia, and nor a cow with a muzzle. V'lei seyachim betraskala shebapia, and nor a colt with a basket around its neck of food that it can eat. And animals can walk out with horseshoes, shoes that are on their feet. And nor can they walk out with a amulet. Even if it was written by an expert amulet writer, which we'll see later in the Gemara, it means that someone who is purported to have written amulets that are really are successful with saving or healing animals. The Gemara says, so in any case, what we see is that a colt cannot walk out to a public domain with the basket around its neck for food. That means it can't go out to the public domain, but you could put it up on its mouth to eat from. But the Brisa continues. This, however, is a stringency in animals that are prohibited, that are not prohibited by humans. And the Gemara is going to go through whether this is talking about the amulet or is this talking about the shoe. We'll see soon. But it may walk out into public domain with a bandage around its wound, because that you're not going to take off in a public domain because it needs to heal. Or splints that are on a broken leg of an animal. Also, it can walk out in public domain because you wouldn't take it off because the animal needs it for its comfort. And if it's got a beginning to birth a amniotic sac, and you're allowed to keep the bell around its neck as long as you stuff the bell with cloth so that the bell not ring, so that's permissible to walk around with it. So that's the end of that. Those halachas of what an animal can wear, public domain, inside your property, etc. So now back to the question that we talked about a moment ago, that it says that the colt cannot walk around with cannot walk out in the public domain with its food bag around its neck. They can't walk out the public domain that way. They can't go out publicly into public domain that way because then they're carrying. And as we said, it has to be a garment that is typically worn for its benefit. But if it's not there for that, then this is not a benefit. This is not a garment. This is a food bag. So it can't carry in a public domain. But in the courtyard, you can put it around its neck. But in the courtyard, you can put it around. So you see that you're allowed to put a food bag around an animal's neck, and that's concurs with Rav, and is a contradiction to Shmuel. Wouldn't you say that this is even large cults, already more somewhat older? And it's only there for their pleasure. Says, this is for young new colts, and because it's difficult for them to graze, because they have long legs and a short neck, and it's hard for them to bend down and get down to the ground to graze, and therefore bringing the food up to their mouth actually is a benefit for them, and it's difficult for them without it. It's not just a pleasure, it actually helps them. It's a necessary assistance. Dekanami, and we can prove that the Ktani, because it puts it juxtaposes it, Dumya, the Kamea, it puts it next to the amulet, which is there for the healing of the animal. And so you see that both of them are actually somewhat of a need versus just for the pleasure of the animal, Shmamina. So that's indeed a good conclusion. So there's no proof to Rav and no question to Shmuel about whether or not you're allowed to hang this food basket around the neck of the animal on Shabbos. We're now on Nun Gimel Amud Beis, 53b, The Gemara says, Amar Mar v'lo b'kameya. This Bryce had said, or the statement had said, that you cannot use a amulet and put it on the animal on Shabbos. You can't walk out with it. So Alpha Pishu Mumcha. It says even if this is a mumcha amulet from from someone who has a reputation to have actually written successful amulets that helped an animal heal. That's what Gemara thinks mumcha means. So Gemara says V'hatanan, but we learned v'lo b'kameya she'ena mumcha. But we learned in the Mishnah that you can't walk out with an amulet from someone who's not a professional, not someone who doesn't have a reputation. Mumcha shaper dami, but tells us that from a mumcha, someone who has a reputation that it works, then you are allowed to wear it. So what's the distinction? Why by a human if if the amulet comes from someone who has written 3 successful amulets that help someone get healed? Then you're allowed to wear it because it is a something that
why by a human is BY. Just want to point out.
What?
Why by a human is with a BY. When people get the wrong idea.
Yes. Thank you. We miss you so much. This is great. So why is it that the the Mishnah talking about humans says that you can, that if it's an expert amulet writer, that you're allowed to wear it in a public domain on Shabbos, and by an animal you cannot. So he says you're right, and when it says over here that you cannot, the animal cannot wear it, it's talking about where it's not an expert writer. And it says, but that's not what it says. The Brisa says even if he is an expert, you can't use the amulet. And if you're telling me that if it's an expert amulet writer, that the animal may go into public domain with it, that contradicts the Brisa. So Gemara says, what it means is this person is an expert amulet writer for humans, but has no track record of writing successful amulets for animals. That kind of amulet, even though that he's an expert, cannot be used for an animal. So, is there such a thing that someone has the expertise of writing amulets for humans, but not for animals? In Adam the human has a certain mazel, and therefore writing the amulet, this guy knows how to tap into the mazel of a human and writes amulets that work. So therefore, for humans, but for an animal, he doesn't know how to tap into the animal mazel because it doesn't have that same kind of mazel that a human has, and therefore you can't. He may be an expert in writing an amulet for humans, but he's not going to be considered an expert for animals, and an animal cannot walk into a public domain with such an amulet on Shabbos. However, if he has, if there is someone that is an expert in writing amulets for an animal, then an animal may walk out with such an amulet into the public domain. Well, if that's correct, then the line in the Mishnah, the Brisa that said, but this is a strength, this is a stringency in regards to animals over a human, that the animal cannot walk out into the public domain with an amulet, but a human can. They both can if there's an expert. So it says, how is this a stringency with animals over a human? You think this is talking about kameyas, about amulets? No, it's talking about the sandal, it's talking about the shoe. And on that, there's a distinction that an animal cannot walk out with the sandal, with the shoe, which is, again, a metal hoof cover to protect the hoofs. a human could walk out with a sandal, with a shoe. So again, we'll see more about what a human may or may not wear, and what's considered a garment, what's considered tachshit and accessories. But for an animal, if it's functional and it's necessary, so going back to this, that as long as the amulet, which heals the animal, and it's coming from an expert that has reported 3 cases of healing, of writing an amulet that successfully healed an animal, that would be permissible to be worn, because that's the derech. That is, as long as that's the derech, that is the common way of animals walking out. So then it's a garment and not excessive accessories. It's not an accessory, and as long as it's needed and not just there for pleasure. Tashema. You're allowed to put oils and rub it in and sort of massage a human, but you're not allowed to an animal, but you're not allowed to do so for an animal. And the assumption of the Gemara is that this is all being done as a remedy. And since it's being done as a remedy, it should be allowed for an animal as well. If you're saying that amulets are allowed for an animal because it's needed, and it's a necessity for animals just as humans, so then the massaging should also be allowed both for animals as they are for humans. My love, the ikamaka. Wouldn't you say, even though there's a wound there, and it's there to assist in the healing, and yet there's a distinction between the human and the animal? Gemara says, like, the gomer maka mishum tainuk. Now, you're right that if it's there to for therapy itself, if it's therapeutic, then it's permissible. The only time that when this distinction is made, when it's being done for pleasure, and for pleasure, it's permissible to a human and not to an animal. Tashema. So Gemara then it continues and tries out. So what about this? By the way, this would still concur with Shmuel that says that you cannot do work for an animal for a pleasure, which is going to be a muksa. So you couldn't put the food basket around its neck, and you also couldn't massage it. But for therapy, that would be permissible, and that concurs with Shmuel and Rav, who says that you can even do something beyond therapeutic, even for pleasure, like hanging the food basket on its neck, is going to have to disagree with this brisa. And as we know, and Rashi quotes it here, that Rav, even though generally we say that the Amoraim do not disagree with the Mishnaic and Brisa texts, and would not disagree with the Mishnah of Brisa, and Rav, who was sort of on the juncture, a student of Rebbe, who collected the Mishnais and put them together, and a colleague of Rabbi Chia, who collected the Brisas, but was of the first generation of the Amoraim, he has the ability to disagree with Mishnais, even though generally we say he doesn't. But Rav Tano Palik, and therefore this Brisa, Rav has a status of a Tana, of Tanaic era, and therefore would disagree sometimes with the Mishnais and the Brisa. And here he's disagreeing and saying, yes, that even for pleasure, it is permissible to hang this food basket, even though it contradicts the Brisa that we have.
When Rav argues on the Tana, does it have the same effect as Machlokes Tanoim, or is it a different status?
No, Rav Tana Upalik. He's Tana, and therefore he disagreed. He had the right to disagree, being still a student of Rebbe and a colleague of Rabbi Chia.
So an Amora who was a Talmid of Rav
would not disagree with the Mishnah. But he would follow Rav.
He would follow Rav.
He could follow Rav, correct.
Yeah.
Like we saw in the case previously, that he said, don't ask him about this. He follows the opinion of his Rebbe. He's a student of Rav, and he follows the opinion of his Rebbe. Tashema. So we're going to try and prove it from another brisa. Behema she'achsa dam. An animal that's ill with this blood ailment. I'm not sure what it is. Rashi uses a old French word, and I'm not sure what ailment it is. Maybe one of you has a clue. Ampadura. Does our scroll say what it is? Anybody? Anyhow, achzadam has a blood ailment. I don't know if he's bleeding or he has a.
What I'm seeing here is congestion of blood, whatever that means.
Congestion of blood?
Yeah, I'm wondering if that's congestive heart failure, where you get blood pooling. Don't know.
I'm not sure what it is, but as a remedy, they're taking the animal into the water to. I thought maybe it's clotting. The animal is bleeding, but maybe it's a blood clot, and this will clot. I'm not sure what it is.
Didn't they do hakaza all the time for that? I mean,
That's usually for a fever.
But I mean, if there was an overabundance of blood, they would let the blood out.
I don't know what the overabundance of blood is.
I don't either, but I mean, I know that other places it says that they had to do a hakaza because there was too much blood.
No, I don't know if hakaza was for too much blood. The bloodletting was because it was a fever. They took out some of the blood as a therapy that the blood will replenish itself with a healthy blood. I don't think it was excess blood. I think it was just that the blood was ill and they wanted to take some out so that'll heal itself. In any case, behema shachzadam, an animal that has this ailment, whatever it is, you cannot put the animal into the water in order for it to cool down. However, adam shachzadam, an animal a human that has such an ailment, you may put him into the water in order to cool down. So we see that again, that for a human, you're allowed to do therapies that for an animal you're not allowed to do. And the same would then be for the amulet, and the same would be for the massage. Why? You see that there's a distinction between the human and the animal. There the reason is because if we let you do this healing process of taking the animal to the water to cool down, we're afraid you're going to start making a potion for its healing, and in order to do so, you're going to grind up some spices to make the potion, and grinding is a Torah prohibition, and so you weren't allowed to do the therapy in order not to create the medicine. Well, then for a human as well, it should be prohibited to do the therapy because you're going to end up doing shchika samamanim. You're going to start grinding up medicine for the person. Adam nirakameka. No, by a person, when he goes into the water, it doesn't look like he's doing it as a therapy. It looks like he's just doing it to cool down. Well, then the same for an animal. You take the animal to the water just to cool down, not as a therapy. It doesn't look like that, and so therefore there's no need to be concerned that someone's going to start making a potion. The Gemara says, "Ein maker lebehema." Now, it's not common to bring a animal to the water just to cool down. So if you're taking the animal, you're taking your cow, your horse into the water, everybody's going to know you're doing it as a therapy for an ailment, and then we're concerned that people start making potions. Well, behema bigazrina. And is there really a gzeira that when there's a chance of the danger of loss to the animal, that there would be, yet the Chachamim would make an enactment and say that you're not allowed to help the animal? But Tani, we learned the animal strayed out of the tchum, or the animal was being shepherded by a shepherd, and the shepherd has its own tchum, so its own areas that it's allowed to travel on Shabbos, and the animal is outside of your space that where you're allowed to travel on Shabbos. So Kollel, you're allowed to call the animal and it'll come to you, even though the animal's traveling outside of its tchum. And we just said that this whole conversation is talking about that the animal has the same obligations of resting on Shabbos as you do. So it has, and your vessels have your tchum obligations, and the animal would be the shepherd's obligations. And so when it comes to you, it's walking out of its space, and you're the one calling it to walk out of its space. So how are you allowed to do that? Obviously, it's because you're trying to make sure that it stays safe. And if it's just wandering, it's not so safe. And we're not concerned that maybe you're going to step out of your space in order to get the animal. So too over here, we should not be worried about maybe you're going to make a potion and you're going to grind the spices for it, because it's a need of the animal. No, really over there, nothing. No Shabbos transgression is happening, because the animals has a space, so its 2,000 almas overlaps into your 2,000 almas, so it actually could walk up to you and to a space where the two of you have a shared tchum. And the only point is that we're not concerned that you will bring it back to out of its space into yours. No, he says actually there is a machlokes of whether or not we're concerned with maybe you're going to be making a potion on Shabbos. The Tanya we learned, as we learned, an animal that ate beans and it now has a stomach ailment. You're not allowed to make a run back and forth in your yard in order to help it loosen its bowels, and therefore it'll heal it. But Rabbi Shaya says you're allowed to. And so too, over here, taking the animal to the water would also be a machlokes of whether or not you're allowed to do a therapy that doesn't involve grinding and making a potion on account of whether this therapy will lead to a potion. Rabbi Shaya says you're allowed to, and the Tanakama says you're not allowed to, and so too, in taking the animal to the water, there's going to be a machlokes of whether we're concerned, if you do one therapy, will that lead to creating a potion? And Darish Rava, halacha Rabbi Shaya, and Rava said that the halacha is like a Rabbi Shaya, that indeed you're allowed to. Tomorrow, as Hashem will continue with the halachas of what an animal is allowed to wear for its protection.